Hi everyone, welcome to this Math OED2 video. This is Chapter 4, Section 3, where we learn how to factor trinomials with a leading coefficient of 1. So let's review our general factoring strategy. The first thing we always look for when we're factoring is we try to find a greatest common factor, or GCF. Okay? After we do that, the second step is to ask ourselves, how many terms does our expression contain? So that's our second step. So in 4.2, we learned that if there are four terms, then we need to attempt factoring by grouping. In 4.3, this lesson right here, we are going to learn that if there are 3 terms, then we can factor using the AC method. Now, other instructors, especially high school instructors, may have taught you a similar but somewhat different method. I've heard of people using the diamond method. Someone referred to something like the illegal or the impossible move. I'm not really sure what that is. You can always try trial and error. Don't recommend it. It's sort of time consuming. But the method I will be teaching you guys here is the AC method. So let's get started on an example. So notice all of these examples are going to have a leading coefficient here of 1. Okay, so the AC method assumes that we have a polynomial that is in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. So let's go through this polynomial and see if we can identify a, b, and c. So I've already mentioned the coefficient of x squared, which we're calling a, in this case is 1. So I'm going to write 1 right here. The coefficient of our x term, or our b, is 6. So I'm going to write 6 right here. And then our c, which is our constant that's being added here, is 5. So I'm going to write 5 right here. So take a minute and look at that and make sure it makes sense to you where a, b, and c came from. Okay, so if you're on the same page with me, then you can multiply a times c. In this case, our a is 1, our c is 5, and we have 5 times 1 is equal to 5. So we write that over here, and then we write our b, which is 6, over here. So our goal is to find 2 numbers. I guess I should write numbers and not digits here. Okay, 2 numbers whose product is 5, okay, which is AC, and whose sum is 6, or B. Okay, so this is a really nice problem because 5 turns out is a prime number, which means it only has 2 factors, which is itself and 1. So you really only have like the one option. I guess really if you think about it, we could also consider the product of -5 and -1. That would be another possibility. But just looking at the numbers, not concerning ourselves with the signs, we only have the one option. So 5 times 1 equals 5, and then 5 plus 1 equals 6. So that's going to be our solution. So what we do when we write this is, remember our first original equation is x squared plus 6x plus 5. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite this 6x as 5x plus 1x. And then, hopefully you can see here, this lends itself to what we were doing in 4.2, which is factoring by grouping. So I can factor out an x here, and I can just kind of factor out a 1 here. So my final answer is x plus 1 times x plus 5. Okay? Sometimes people will skip this step. Okay, it's totally up to you. You can use this extra step or not when a is equal to 1. But sometimes people will go straight to the factored form, which is just going to be x plus 1 times x plus 5. Okay, but rewriting 6x as the sum of 5x and 1x really shows you exactly why this factorization is true. Okay, let's move on and do another problem. All right, we have x squared plus 2x minus 15. So again, our first step is always to identify a, b, and c. Okay, and again, we're assuming that our equation is written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. So what is a here? Well, remember there's no number here, but we can always write a 1. There's 1x squared there. And then we see that b is 2, and c is not 15, but negative 15. Remember, the sign always travels with the numbers. So 1 times negative 15 is negative 15, and b is 2. Okay? So remember, we're looking for two numbers whose product is negative 15 and whose sum is 2. So usually I recommend students just start writing out the factors of the number. So one set of numbers that multiply up to negative 15 are negative 5 times positive 3. So then let's see what happens when we add them. Well, negative 5 plus 3 gives us negative 2. Well, we don't want negative 2, we want positive 2, so that can't be the right answer. So let's try it the other way. Let's make our 5 positive and our 3 negative. That's a times here. It's not working very well. Okay, so that gives us, oops, just realized. That gives us negative 15, this gives us negative 15, there we go. Okay, so we have 5 minus 3 over here, that gives us positive 2. So that is our solution. Okay, so our two factors are 5 and negative 3. Okay, so let's go back to our original equation, which is x squared plus 2x minus 15. So we know that 2x can be rewritten as 5x minus 3x. Okay, and then just like the previous problem, we can use factoring by grouping. Now remember, it's kind of problematic when we have this negative sign here, so we have to adjust a little bit and rewrite it like this. So then we can group these terms together and these terms together. We can factor out an x over here. We can factor out a 3 over here, or negative 3 rather, sorry. Okay, and then we see that this term and this term are identical. So then we factor out our x plus 5, and the x minus 3 is left over. Okay, and that's our final answer. And again, some people will skip this step, and as soon as they find out that the solutions are 5 and negative 3, they will go straight to writing this in factored form, which is x plus 5 times x minus 3. But if you want the explanation, if you want to see how and why that is true, you can go through these steps over here.